Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closer Show. As always, Scott Carson, excited to be here with you today. I'm even more excited to have our buddy Dan Deppen, who's the head honcho at Fusion Notes and fellow Note Mastermind member, on today. Join us from Rocky Mountain High, Denver, Colorado. Right, Dan?
Yep, that's right.
How are you doing today, man? Doing well?
Man, I'm doing well. Yeah, not too bad. Can't complain.
There you go. We were visiting a little bit. Dan was in Austin for the Note Mastermind this last weekend, and I'm really excited to have you kind of back on as a kind of a follow-up to your last episode on August 1st. For those that are listening or are new to the show and haven't binge-watched all our episodes or heard about this stuff, Dan put in his notice and left his full-time job on August 1st. We had him on there to talk about kind of what he's focused on, and so it's kind of a cool fast forward now, 8 months later, and kind of seeing, hey, how's everything going, right?
Yeah, everything's been going well. It's definitely been busy ride since then. So, quitting my job doesn't have me working less hours than I did before. That's for sure.
So why don't we share? Well, let's do a quick flashback. So it's flashback. Share with everybody who's listening out here, whether they're watching this live on video on YouTube, listening to the podcast, or listening to this one of our new 17 AM FM radio stations across the country. Talk about kind of what your background is, Dan.
Yeah, sure. So my background was as a mechanical design engineer in the aerospace industry. So I had done that for about 10 years, worked on satellites, and in the very beginning when I was still in college as an engineering intern, I worked for Lockheed on Space Shuttle. Got to do some really cool things, really enjoyed it, and then did my MBA at University of Colorado, then became a product manager, worked for Oracle for several years, traveled around the world doing that, really liked it, but had always wanted to work for myself. And then when I was looking to move money out of stocks, I'd always done a lot of stock and option trading on my own, wanted to move some of that into real estate, and looked at just doing traditional rentals. And, around here, around the Denver area, that's just real tough to do right now. So I was looking for other kinds of real estate related investments. That's where I came across Notes, and ended up, really diving deep in on Notes. I'd started to build up a business kind of on the side. And then in August last year, decided to go ahead and do that full time. So it's kind of at the point where I understood the business, felt like there was a lot of potential in that, was able to find deals, was able to find funding. And at that point dove in, went full time.
Yeah. Now, you've got a lovely wife and two little ones as well too, right?
Yeah. So 2 daughters, 10 and 12. Yeah.
And let's recap the conversation that you had with Jennifer.
Yeah. So, she was always very supportive. It was funny because she's still an engineer in the aerospace industry. In the past I had written a book on poker. I used to be big into online poker about 10 years ago, and I was always more of the gambler. And as I was getting more into Notes, and that was obviously where my passion was, and we were starting to have conversations around, well, at some point I'd like to do this full time. Her comment was, well, you should go ahead and do it. You should be less conservative and just go do it. So, she's a pretty conservative person by nature. So when she said something like that, I'm like, wow, yeah, maybe it's time to get going on that. So she's been super supportive throughout.
Yeah. Now you spent some time, you'd closed on some deals, you bought some deals in your IRA, and start doing that stuff. So let's talk about, for those that are listening, thinking like, man, that's awesome. I'd like to go full time at some point. And it's nice you've got, Jennifer still working, still bringing home money and stuff. But that didn't mean you sat around playing golf all day or just playing online poker, right?
No, I did the opposite. So when I went full time, I had a reasonable number of deals in my LLC and Fusion Notes. I think there were maybe around 10 or so at the time. But, with non-performing note deals, those things take 12 to 18 months to pay off. So I knew that once I left my job, it was going to be a little while until really income kept showing up, started showing up. And so we had discussed that. My wife, as an engineer, basically, she could pay the bills on her own if really push came to shove. And I had some other money and other assets squirreled away. So I kind of made a plan, and I knew I could run for 12 months. And even if I completely flubbed and did nothing over those 12 months, I could go back to work, and, that wouldn't be fun financially, but I wasn't really going to hurt myself. So I wasn't really taking a giant risk. If I was the sole income provider and, we were depending on me for health insurance, that would have been a different animal. I would have had to wait longer before I could do it. But, the idea was, well, if I can start going full time now, I can kind of build the snowball for the business, because the earlier I can build that, the better off I'm going to be in the long run, and just kind of planned on that dip. And, now 8 months in, I basically come out of that dip, which is really nice. And, I'm starting to get some exits, got, certain base of notes that are reperforming. So there's kind of like a steady base income coming in, and that's been nice now.
Yeah, that's always nice when you start seeing those chunks on your, reperforming notes coming and starting to pay your bills on things, right? It's really a great way to look at it. Like, okay, I've got this covered. I got our monthly amount covered. I can work hard this month or take some time and have some fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, getting that steady base is kind of nice. And then as you get, exits here and there periodically, those are really nice bonuses on top of that. But yeah, I definitely worked hard. I mean, especially the first 4 or 5 months, I mean, I was kind of cranking day and night, because I know these deals take a while to pay off. I know the existing ones are going to take a while to pay off. So I was, working hard to try to get as much as I could in the queue, at the time. And now I'm kind of starting to get on the backside of that, where, a lot of the funds are starting to spit out on the other end.
And basically you're now doubling down or rinse and repeating again, right?
Well, that's a nice thing, right? I mean, once you get kind of your systems and processes down, I got some pretty steady, due diligence processes and pricing processes and, other things. Once you kind of get the formula, what I really like about notes is you can reuse, everything. I might have talked about this in the last podcast, but like when I was in the aerospace industry, you build a satellite and stuff, it's usually like a one-off. If you build like 3, that's like mass production, right? So you learn all these things on a project, and then it gets done, you go to the next one, and a lot of times you're doing something totally different, which is part of what made that industry fun. But as far as making money in notes, it's nice when you can take everything you do on one job and then apply it to the next one and the next one and the next one.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit simpler versus having to reinvent the wheel or figure out retro rocket entry back into Earth's atmosphere. It's a little bit easier sometimes, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot easier than that. I mean, there's a lot of details you got to capture, but once you kind of get those in, within processes and kind of understand what you're doing, it's not too bad. You can leverage everything you've done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk a little about kind of what's been your big game plan. If you had 2 or 3 things that you really dove into your first 3 to 4 months, what would you say the big things that have helped contribute to your success 8 months later now?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big things were really just getting like some of my pricing methodology and things down. Because one of the things I was doing at first was, I had an ROI calculator that I built, and I think it was pretty decent, but there was a lot of kind of like one-off analysis on every deal. And then, the other thing that would happen is sometimes I put a bid in and you get a counter offer back, and sometimes you don't get a counter offer back till like a week or 2 later, and you've done a million things in between, and then you got to go back and remember, it's like, okay, what was I doing on this one? So, I do some things now where actually, when I work out a bid, well, for one thing, the spreadsheet's a lot more robust and easy to use than it was. So I get out of some of that one-off analysis stuff. And then a lot of times I can also calculate, multiple prices. I can figure out where I'm going to bid, like at what price the deal completely blows up, and I can document that. So if somebody comes back with a counter 2 weeks later, I can kind of quickly jump back in and kind of figure out where I'm going to be, what I need to do, if I can accept it or decline or counter again or whatever. Those kinds of things have been very helpful.
Now, what's the and obviously as you get to know your market better, you're buying more deals in markets and increasing I would be willing to bet your cost basis kind of goes down a little bit as you're diving into assets. You're not having to use all the due diligence funds or things like that too, correct?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, one thing in the business that people run into, and I've certainly done this, is, you get a bid accepted and start pulling BPOs and O&Es and things like that. And then, a lot of times you find out you can't close on the asset because there's something wrong with the property or there's a title issue. And I've, wasted a lot of money on those. I tend to do less now. One is, getting like the relationships with the sellers and kind of knowing like which sellers tend to have junky assets and which sellers tend to be clean. If it's a seller, I kind of know their stuff is going to be in good order. I might just go and get everything at once. There's one or two sellers in particular where I bought a lot of good stuff from them, but a lot of what they have is junky. And I've told those sellers, look, I'm going to do some of the due diligence in series. I'm going to get eyes on the property, and I'm not pulling the O&E until I do that. And it's just going to take a little bit more time than it might otherwise, because I wasted so much money on these things before. And a lot of times about issues, sometimes that the seller knew about before. So yeah, so I've definitely adjusted that process. But if I need to go fast, I can go fast as well. I use guys like Dickie Baldwin sometimes, where you just send him an email to get things going. I've got an assistant that's working for me now. Have time, I can turn her loose on things, so I'm a lot more efficient, and I don't get bogged down as much, in the due diligence as I did kind of in the early stages.
That's good stuff. Now let's talk a little about your assistant. Are they locally? Are they a virtual assistant? How's that kind of working for you?
So they're local. So my assistant Sarah lives about 15 minutes away. Now she works remotely because all these things, you don't have to be in the same place. I just work out of my house. I don't have an office,
right,
or anything like that. But I did want someone that was in the local area, because I want to be able to meet up with them face to face periodically. In fact, we actually just did that earlier this morning. So to me, that's just a better, more efficient process. I don't feel like I'm just kind of throwing stuff over a transom. We're a lot more aligned. And, she's been huge because she had a background as a paralegal, had worked on with some firms that had done foreclosures. So I had to teach her my stuff, and I had to teach her this specific niche, but there's a lot of things she already knows. She can record documents. I mean, she understands a lot of the documentation. She can write things up for me. She can, kind of search out anything online, really good at due diligence and other sorts of things like that.
Yeah, it's a huge asset to help you really be able to focus on what you need to focus on as you start to close on deals. Because there's a lot of little things that just tie up your time that you need somebody understandable, but it's not necessarily the bbest use of your time, right, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, and early on too. I mean, I would get bogged down on, all sorts of things where, you run into things like the city wants you to, register something and, fill out some paperwork. And a lot of times they don't make that easy to do. Like sometimes I get letters from cities and I'm not actually sure what the heck it is.
Yes, me too, man.
and I, sometimes I can send some of that stuff to Sarah and say, okay, here's what I got. Just go figure it out. And she does it. And so that's really nice. So like on the due diligence stuff too, it's cool. And well, not so much due diligence, but like I have one that in Muskegon that I'm going to be likely taking back here in a couple of months. And so I said, okay, and I don't necessarily have a team ready to go on the ground. So it's sort of like I find some realtors, have them go by, get some recent pictures, because it's been a couple months since I've had pictures, have them give me an estimate of the value. And, she got two folks to do that. So I got some value estimates of the pictures, property's looking good. And then we talked this morning, it's like, all right, well, we need to, change locks. There's probably going to be a clean out and some other things. So we're getting all that stuff prepped so that when we actually get it back in a few months, we'll be ready to hit the ground running on that one.
That's good stuff there. Yeah, it's huge because and how many are you having to work full time, part time for those?
Yeah, she's working about half time. So she's a mom and has some kids, and this works out great for her because there's a lot of flexibility. She can't work full time with all that stuff going on, and it fluctuates a little bit between like 15 to 30 hours a week. And so, but overall averages out to about half time.
That's good because it allows you to, that's an extra 15 to 30 hours a week that you're putting into going out and probably raising capital or finding deals and using the most effective use of your time at that point, right? Or play a little golf maybe?
Absolutely. I have been getting the golf in a little bit, not as much as I wanted. So I did, join the course that's close by me. I hadn't done that in the last few years because I didn't feel like I had the time to use it. So I haven't really been getting out there that much yet this year. But yeah, that's really my game plan for the summer, to be able to have a lot more time doing that.
Because didn't you win a championship or something like that recently?
Yeah. So last year, the other course I play, I won the club championship, and the other year they started doing this funny thing where they got a green jacket for the winner, and it's like a size 10 million jacket. It's kind of like kind of look like a little kid in your dad's coat, with it. The whole thing is meant to be silly, but yeah, that was a lot of fun doing that.
That's good stuff. Well, that's a great effective use of your time playing golf. Because if you're out playing golf and you're a member, you probably got some people that are playing golf, probably got some investing or they're looking at some stuff. It's a great 4-hour bit of marketing piece. That's somebody captive almost for 4 hours playing golf, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, definitely the new place I'm playing at now, yeah, definitely be a lot more potential for that. So
yeah, that's one of the things that I used to play a lot of golf when I was a banker. That's what we would do. We'd take our high-end clients out to lunch or an afternoon, every Thursday, Friday, and be, hang around at the golf club. You never know what kind of conversations you hear at the 19th hole, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it's an interesting cross section of folks, people in all kinds of different businesses and different industries, and yeah, definitely a fun place to hang out.
Now, you don't have an office, but I might throw an idea your way to hang out there maybe once or twice a week for a few hours working remotely.
Oh, at the course?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. They have a restaurant and a bar. Yeah, I could set up shop in there and do that for a little bit. That would be pretty easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Put your Fusion Notes or I Love Notes or, some of that stuff on your laptops. What are you doing? What you working on? Oh, I'm just, buying asses in Muskegon and making America great again.
Right.
We need to get you get you some swag there. Fusion Notes or some hats there for you to wear.
Yeah, I haven't really bought any swag. The only Fusion Note stuff I really buy are the mailing labels, but that's it.
And you get those really cheap, don't you?
Oh yeah, they're super cheap. And then actually my daughters pre-put them on the envelopes. So that's like their little job that they help with.
Good stuff. Now, what's been the biggest surprise in the last 8 months? If there was something that's kind of stood out as a surprise to you that you thought might have been more difficult or a little bit harder on you that maybe wasn't as bad, or maybe something is a little harder than what you expected?
Yeah, I think what got hard for me was, so I started full-time in August. When I got to about November, December, I was at the point where I probably had, I was getting into somewhere in the 30s as far as the number of notes in all various stages. And I had, a couple different things collide at once. I took an REO that turned out to be a hoarder house and was in really rough shape. I had a couple situations with like crazy local code enforcement people. At one point, I had a code violation on a property in Toledo, and they sent me this thing, so it's $75 fine because there was some trash or something in the yard. I'm like, okay, fine. And I didn't have time to get to it right then. I'm like, okay, I know they might add to the fines or whatever, but I can't deal with this right now.
Right.
Well, like when I didn't respond within a week, they sent me this other thing saying we want you to show up in court, or we might try to arrest you. And I was like, whoa, what the heck is going on? I think I called you about that.
I remember that phone call, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so I just had a lot of things in. And by then I had been running really hard kind of day and night for a few months. So I was getting a little brain fried at that point. What I would have done a little bit different, I'm still kind of trying to do this in a way, is just kind of chill out a little bit and not feel the need to kind of crank day and night. I wish I would have just slowed down and chilled out a little bit throughout the entire process and not try to, kind of boil the ocean and just do 10 million things all at once. So,
So have you, is that what playing a little bit more golf is going to help you calm down a little bit? Are you playing some things with Jennifer and the girls?
We are, yeah. So we got a Disney cruise coming up this summer. So
oh my gosh. You know who to call is the expert Disney cruise.
I was discussing that with Stephanie at the Mastermind last weekend. Yeah, and Charlie gave a bunch of recommendations. So yeah, we've been all over that. And then we'll take a road trip to visit my in-laws in Michigan, probably look at some assets along the way while I'm doing that as well. Got parents coming out to visit, got a lot of things going on this summer. So that'll be nice. That's why I've also been cranking to get the, Sarah up online to be able to delegate as much stuff as I can to her, because some of these times I'm going to be going off the grid for a little bit. So I've been kind of putting everything in order. Now I kind of feel comfortable to where I'll be able to do that. The sky's not going to fall if I'm offline for a few days.
All right. So where are you guys looking at taking the cruise? Caribbean, Europe, where?
No, it's Eastern Caribbean. So you go to Castaway Key, and then I think it's in the Virgin Islands, Tortola, and somewhere else. My wife's been doing most of the planning.
Well, I'll tell you this. Internet's not cheap on there. You'll spend $100 a day if you're going to be on your phone the entire time, but you can very easily get approved loan mods and documents via your phone or approve things. That's what I did. I would log on for just like an hour at the end of the day with my assistant. Same thing. What's the fires that we need to worry about, and go from there back and forth. So you can do it, man.
No, I know I can. Yeah, and I'm thinking about just not even doing the internet and just looking at all the deals that I have in work and telling anybody, yeah, if a document comes through, there's something I need to do. It's just going to have to wait a week or so till I get back. So we'll see. I'm still figuring that out.
That's good stuff, man. That's really good stuff. I'm so glad to hear that. What has changed about your marketing in the last 8 months? Has it, you've still kind of kept the same formula of emails and other things, or what's been the biggest bang for your buck this last 8 months? Because you've got a little bit more time now.
Yeah, I mean, mostly the marketing's just been more consistent, so I don't know that it's really changed too much. I had my weekly newsletter going out before, and I've continued with that. I get a lot of good feedback on that. And then I have a YouTube channel where I make a lot of videos on using Excel and applying that to notes, because that's something that people struggle with. And back when I was doing my MBA, it was a little easier for me taking a lot of the finance courses and statistics with an engineering background. A lot of people came in there with liberal arts backgrounds and other things, but they didn't really have to use spreadsheets. So I helped people out, and they appreciated that. So when I got into notes, I thought that would be a good thing to do. And I've been getting a lot of good feedback on that. And that's actually led to a lot of funding, as well, because people interested in notes to look for that and then find me. So it's just been doing kind of more of it on a more consistent basis. And then I've been able to put out some other videos as well, talk about, some of the low-hanging fruit sources that are out there to buy notes, and a little bit of the bidding process and just some of the other, nitty-gritty things that people are looking for information on. So,
yeah, you're providing good quality content, man. You're just sharing some of the hurdles and things that are good, and I think that's what has really helped you, being a marketer as well, is sharing a little bit of things. It builds trust, it builds rapport. It helps people like, hey, I don't want to do this, and it looks like you're pretty proficient in it. Let me stroke you a check, and let's see if we can't work on things together, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's happened a lot. And a lot of that stuff doesn't necessarily take me a lot of time. I mean, like when I write my newsletter, usually I just write about whatever's on my mind that week or whatever's going on or whatever I've learned about. So there's usually something fresh in my mind. And so, I just sit down there for 30 minutes or whatever and crank it out. So it's a pretty easy thing to do. And I'm kind of just on a regular cadence now with it. So it's not too bad.
That's the thing about the note business. You end up, every day is a little bit different, but it's a lot of the same things over and over and over again. And an email, once you set up a good template like you have in your newsletter, you're just changing 3 or 4 paragraphs and probably tweaking a picture or two with a couple links, right?
Yeah, I mean, usually, I usually like to have a picture in there. So I find a picture online, whatever, fits, and then, write the copy. Sometimes there's a video. If I do that, I record it. Doesn't usually take that long, and then slap the video in there and go. Yeah, it's not really a cumbersome process.
Now, what's Jennifer? Is she starting to eye now? First of all, let me bring this back. How many notes have you closed in total now?
Yeah, so in total, I'm exactly at 50 right now. So, yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, big goals for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so my goal at the beginning of the year was to close 60 throughout the course of 2019, and I've closed 18 so far. So about just about a third of the way, a third of the way through the year, and so feeling pretty much on track, because like you get to the fourth quarter, things should pick up a little bit more. So all that's tracking, pretty well. Now they got some of these systems in place. I feel pretty comfortable scaling that up and just kind of continuing to go at the same clip that I have been.
What are you using to kind of track your deal flow? Are you using like an online portal like Podio or Pipedrive or Infusionsoft, or what are you using that's working well for you?
Yeah, so I use Pipedrive for mine, and that works pretty well. I've got it set up the way that I like it. Initially when I set it up, I went to the Adam Adams videos. And then as I got deeper into it and kind of figured out how I wanted to run my business, there's a lot of stuff in there I've changed and customized. And now they have the assistant. I had to buy another seat for her, but it's really nice because we use that as the tracking system and kind of the task list. So instead of sending her a million emails whenever there's something I need help with, I just put stuff in there and then she'll take care of it. And then if there's something that's like super urgent, I need her to do right away, I'll just send her a text and we'll do it that way. But that's worked pretty well. And it gives me a good view of where the whole portfolio is overall and has kind of a good one-stop shop for all the information. And, you know, that tool works for me, but I know other people who use Podio and other stuff. I'm not really religious about the tools that I use. Some people kind of are. They're very insistent that like one tool is better than another. I mean, I think you just want to, you know, kind of understand how you want to run your business, customize the tool the way that, you know, you need to suit the way that you want to run, and then just use it consistently.
That makes sense. What's the best advice you give somebody who's thinking about leaving their job or going full time? Or let's start with that first. What's the best advice you'd give somebody?
I would say just have a plan. You know, like I did. Like I wasn't. You know, there's multiple ways you can attack it. I mean, you know, some people will take their notes business to the point where they're actually replacing their income, and they can just kind of free run. Or if you're going to, you know, move a little earlier than that, just have a plan for how you're going to deal with that. Either have like, you know, another source of income, understand how you're going to cover health insurance, or, you know, if you're going to use savings to ride through, then understand how much you have and how long you can run, and kind of pre-decide like, okay, you know, here are my decision points. You know, things don't go the way I want, then, you know, this is kind of the point where I would have to knock it off there. Just think it through ahead of time. And just remember too, like for me, you know, I planned on this income dip, and that was fine. But, you know, mentally I found myself just kind of grinding, trying to get, you know, as far as fast as I could. Even though I was actually ahead of my plan, I still felt, you know, like I just had to crank 24/7 until I came out of the dip.
Stuff. Somebody who's looking to get into the note business, coming from a fix and flip side, another side, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, I would, and I thought a couple people about this morning. I would say definitely get some training, do your homework, you know, talk to people who are in the business, you know, wrap your head around it. Don't just start buying stuff. And, you know, you definitely need to put the time in to figure things out. But at the same time, don't go crazy with that. I mean, at some point, you got to go buy stuff, because I see a lot of people where, you know, notes or other kinds of real estate investing are almost like a hobby, where they sort of, you know, do a lot of training, travel around the conferences, don't actually ever really get around to buying anything. And that's, you know, that can be, if someone has a hobby, that's fine, but, you know, you're not really going to make money doing it that way. At some point, you got to get in and get the real world experience, because you can study as much as you want up front, but there are always a lot of unique situations with notes, and at some point you got to just kind of experience them and get through that and figure out how you want to run your business.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to learn so much more from buying your first couple notes and working your way through that. I mean, no webinar, no podcast, no video series is going to help you duplicate that, because there's a lot of different ways that these country western songs can go, right, Dan?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like it seems like it's always something different, and, you know, sometimes too, like I'll get hit with something that feels like it's out of left field, and then you talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, no, I've seen that, and you find out that's actually not that unusual. So
yeah, that's the beautiful thing. It's the little things that keep you on your toes for stuff. Now, are you you've got some things that you're anything in the hopper, anything that's outside of kind of the normal business activity that you're thinking about doing with your note business, or adding to the marketing aspect of things that you're looking to do in the near future?
Yeah, so I mean, at some point, I'm going to do a podcast. So I've been, you know, thinking about that, and, you know, talking to Daphne Peterson about that. We've been going back and forth. We even actually have some cover art and some other stuff, but it's been, I've been, you know, very just heads down doing deals, and, you know, she's a realtor in Sonoma County, has been, you know, kind of going through her busy season, so we'll probably resync on that during the summer. And actually just had a phone conversation with Tom Hazard yesterday about doing that as well. And I said, well, I got this vacation coming up in a few weeks. I need to do certain things before that, but I'm going to circle back with him, you know, after that, see about getting things going.
That's good. I mean, Daphne's great. Daphne's a fellow mastermind member, an amazing person. And that's good. Have a little bit of balance there, the real estate and investing side of things, and going from there. And so, yeah, Daphne's phenomenal. So that's cool. And if you decide you're working with Podetize, Tom and his team will help you out. They're phenomenal. So we're looking forward to that. So that's good stuff, man.
Yep.
That's good stuff with stuff. You, when you started in the note business, when did you originally start? What was when you kind of got into it?
Early 2017.
Okay. So you've been into it just over 2 years, right?
Yep.
2 years, 50 deals. That's good, man. That's a great start of things. And basically full time for 8 months. So 16 months of kind of a ramp up to get where you wanted to be. And now you've been, you know, unemployable. Maybe not unemployable, but gleefully unemployed, right?
No, I think I'm unemployable. I think that's fair. Yeah, I think I would have a hard time going back because, one of the things throughout my aerospace career and then, working in IT, I worked for primarily some larger companies, worked for a startup a little bit at the end, but I always felt like I was waiting for permission to do things that I felt were obvious. Whereas in my notes business, if I feel like something's important, I just go do it, which was nice, and in those first few months, actually, that kind of created a problem for me because there was no filter. That's why I would just start going day and night. Then I learned I need to kind of self-regulate and kind of back off a little bit here and there. But yeah, I don't think I would do well if I had to go back.
Yeah, it's not a fun thing to go back and have to hurry up and wait for somebody else to give you the decision.
That's more exhausting than just doing the work. Yeah.
So the question is, Jennifer starting to well, maybe it's time for me to start looking at leaving, or she enjoys what she's doing, still hanging around for everything?
Yeah, she still enjoys what she's doing. But she's made comments. I don't think she wants to do it forever. I think at some point, maybe when the kids are out of the house or whenever, she's going to want to either back off a little bit at work or, maybe do something different eventually. It's not going to be immediate, but that's the plan is kind of long term is this will, kind of give her a lot of options at some point.
Mm-hmm. What's the best way for people to reach out to you, Dan, if they want to reach out to you, pick your brain or ask you a question or two?
Yeah, the best way is just to drop me an email. My email is just dan@fusionnotes.com. And then on my, website, fusionnotes.com, I've got all my information on there and also my YouTube channel. So I'm really pretty easy to find. And there aren't a whole lot of Dan Deppens out there. So just Google me.
Deppen, 2 E's. All right. Not Deppen, right?
Yeah, I've seen all kinds of, it seems simple to me, but yeah, I've seen a lot of crazy spellings with people throw A's and I's in there and yeah, all sorts of different things.
That happens. It'll happen. But that's as long as they come across Fusion Notes and call you up, that's all that matters, right?
Yeah, pretty easy to find.
Exactly. Well, hey, Dan, I want to say thank you. Very proud of you. You're doing a great job. You're a great mastermind member. You're always there to help out other people. Is there any advice you give to somebody thinking about to join the mastermind? Any words of advice?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend doing it. It's been very good for me, when you call the fast track training, the fast track because it speed things up, and it definitely sped things up for me because I did that in February of last year, and ended up quitting my job in August, about six months later, and I wouldn't have there's no way I would have hit that point that fast without that. And, the resources are great. The live meetups like we did this last weekend are really good. It's just fun to have that network of a bunch of really serious note investors and, and then also offline in the Facebook group and things. It's just really invaluable because like we just talked about, you're always running into these little weird situations or different things. And usually there's somebody that's seen it in one way or another. So yeah, really invaluable resource. If somebody's thinking about it, highly recommend they check it out. And they can always give me a call too if they want to discuss it. I've done that more than once for folks. So
I appreciate that, Dan. Thanks so much. Well, hey, you keep cranking. We're here to help in any way we can. But you are just rock and rolling. Definitely a note rock star out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
thank
man.
You for all your help and everything. It's been great.
Hey, glad to help, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're focused. You're staying in your lane, and you're going out and making it happen. So thanks so much. Keep it up. We look forward to even bigger things from you over the next 8 months. All right.
All right. Sounds good.
Great, man. All right, guys. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closer Show. Like I said, feel free to check out fusionnotes.com or reach out to Dan if you got any questions about anything. But learn from Dan. If you're thinking about doing this, put a plan together. Talk to people that are doing it. Seek counsel, not advice. Talk to people who are doing or where you want to be, and then put a plan together and work that plan. And more importantly, don't let the freedom of being unemployed or leaving a job strangely. Some people will waste that time. Some people won't take it serious. Dan took it very serious, and that's why he's able to do what he's doing now and take a little bit more time to have fun and really, as he says, be unemployable now versus unemployed.
Yeah.
Good stuff, everybody. Take care and go make something happen, and we'll see you all at the top, everybody. Bye.